What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Tim Warren Show. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the real reason that crypto prices were crashing for the last couple of weeks. It has been exposed. There are people talking about it right now. The big question, though, once we tell you why we've been crashing, does that mean that the bottom is in, or do we have further to go to the downside? We have some big stories to continue to talk about in the world of crypto and the stock market, which do have a relationship today. So make sure to stick around all the way till the end. We're going to look at the charts. We're going to cover the news. We're going to answer some of your guys' questions. We made sure we talked about it a little bit before the show. We didn't answer as many questions on Monday as I really wanted to. A lot of people were in chat asking some great questions. We're going to make sure we carve out some time towards the end of the show to do that. So stick around and ask some good questions in chat. Put a 1 right now if you are still hopeful to make some money in these markets. Also, I want to start doing this more often. Where are you watching from right now? Let us know your state or your country you are from right now. I got to introduce the team, as always. I got Smay. I got Shrum. Boys, how are we feeling today? What's on your shirt? What does your shirt say, Smay? Lift him up.
Him
I like
up.
it. I like it. I like it a lot.
And him, for those who don't get the implication, we're talking about Jesus Christ. Okay.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Smay, how are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. I get to exist, and that's always a great gift.
True.
So I'm happy, looking forward to it. Didn't have any jelly beans today, I have to say. That is unfortunate. But anyways, I'm doing good.
I know someone who will answer that question very differently. Shrum, how are you doing today? And give us a rough estimate of just how many jelly beans you have consumed alone in the last hour.
Right.
Well,
Glad to be here,
remove the
Tim.
alone part. Could have been with people.
Better than I deserve.
You don't want to hear the number if you start from this morning. Hearing the number of how many he's had in the last hour will be high enough.
I have had approximately 103 jelly beans, the exact support line where I bought Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that is why I'm bullish. But no, I'm better than I deserve, Tim. I mean, we're trudging through it, right? We're getting a little bit of a relief bounce today. But of course, the question still remains, is this the beginning of the bear market, or is just a routine correction to the downside? We're going to attempt to answer some of that stuff. But of course, we don't have a crystal ball. I know that I don't. The number go down in my portfolio is definitely evidence of that. But regardless of all, I'm better than I deserve because the assets that are in my portfolio, I have high convictions in as revenue generating assets.
It's going to be a very interesting topic to tackle today. And, you know, I'm going to hold off on my answer just yet until we get into the meat of the analysis portion. But I do want to know, you guys in chat, what do you think? Of course, if you're here with us live, there is a poll right now. Go vote on it. Do you believe the crash is over? The questions or the answers you can give is yes, no, or wait, there was a crash. Go vote right now. 52% of you right now are saying no, 43% saying yes, and 5% of you are asking where the crash is. It's going to be interesting to talk about this. I'll say this. I do think it's fair at this point to call what we're watching happen a crash. Even though, go to my screen here, Smay, we need to remind ourselves, before we say anything about what we think the future looks like for cryptocurrency, we need to remind ourselves of what we are looking at right now. Bitcoin yesterday, for those of you who maybe have been sleeping for the last 48 hours, we crashed below $100,000. This is something we warned a couple of weeks ago. In fact, a little over a month ago, we said, hey, there are some things happening on the charts right now that we are hopeful don't get pulled back down to, but you need to be prepared for a sub 100K price action. And sure enough, that did happen yesterday. We're not asking the question, will we ever go below 100 again? We went below 100K yesterday. We're rebounding quite nicely right now, above 104. And I think there's even possibly a little bit higher coming in on this bounce. That's not the question. The question is, will we go lower than yesterday's 98? What was the exact number? Let me go over it real quickly. The low for yesterday was 98,892 according to Coinbase. So that was your answer. Here's what we said, though. Here's what you need to realize. Bitcoin, as disastrous as it has been, and even though I will call this a crash, it still only has dropped 21.45% from the recent all-time highs. Why is this important? Because you're hearing people come out of the woodwork predicting the bear market is here. This is over. We're crashing. It's over. It's dead. It's gone. We're into the bear market. I saw a post the other day on X that even said Bitcoin now below 20% has reached bear market territory. If this is true, if that's the simplistic definition of a bear market, ladies and gentlemen, we've had several bear markets in the last couple of years. We, of course, lived through the great bear market of early 2025. You don't even have to go a full year ago. Earlier this year, we had Bitcoin prices crash 32% to $74,000. That wasn't the only bear market in the last couple of bull markets. And large bull market, bear markets coming in. We have a massive crash back in the summer of 2024, 33% to the downside. Heck, I think we even got close here. What is this percentage drop we had in the spring of 24? Oh, look at that. A nice little bear market of a drop of 21% right there. And of course, we probably had 2 or 3 more bear markets right back here in 2023. What's my overall point, guys? 20% pullbacks are not bear markets. 30% pullbacks on Bitcoin is not a bear market. Do bear markets start with 20 or 30% pullback? Sure. Yeah, at some point, you have a stoppage there. But like I love to say from time to time, before you freak out, zoom out. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at this chart, I'll give one thing. I want to be extremely honest with people. The momentum of Bitcoin's bull run has absolutely slowed down. I will give those who claim that we're entering a bear market, I will give them a flower and say, you are right. The explosive nature of Bitcoin's price action has been dwindling. But the reality is, when you look at Bitcoin's price, stemming back to when the bull market started in November of 2022, when the bottom was fully in, that's not a bearish looking chart. That is not a chart that is entered into bear market territory. Could we get to bear market territory? Sure, we could. And I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. But what I want to make sure I'm stressing right now is that this is still a good looking chart, all things considered. It might not feel good to your portfolio. It might not feel good seeing Bitcoin down 20%. But when you look from a macro perspective, unless you just bought Bitcoin within the last month and a half, you're sitting in profit on Bitcoin. And the amount of fear that is running rampant right now in the space, I want to make sure you guys are clear on this. I talked about it this morning. I put a video out on the Tim Warren Trading channel. I encourage you guys, make sure you're subscribed to Tim Warren Trading. I will put out videos a couple times a week in the mornings. We talked about how the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index now is at 23. Yesterday is at 21. Interesting. I'm going to talk about that later on in the video. But in a nutshell, what you need to understand, take my face down for a second here, Smay. I want people to look at this. I want people to look at the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index over time. This is dating back to 2018. Look at the times and the levels we get to when we start to bottom out. It's somewhere between 20 and 10. I do think there's a chance we actually could reach 10 before this is all said and done. I'm kind of giving away some of my thoughts about the future, but I want you to pay attention to the dates and the timelines of when we hit 20 in the past. So for example, we fell to 20 on the Fear and Greed Index back in February or March of 2025. What was the price of Bitcoin at that time? Oh, it's all the way here. We're talking about $80,000 per coin. So the last time we were this fearful, the level of fear we have right now sitting above 100K, the last time we had that fear, we were at $80,000. Before that, as I zoom back over into the charts, we could keep going back here. Before that, we hit a 20 back in July of 2024. What was the price of Bitcoin in July of 2024? Oh, it was all the way down at $54,000. I could keep going on. Ultimately, the other times we hit it, we were down at 25,000 and down at, I think 15,000, 16,000 if you want to be precise. My overall point here is, yes, the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index keeps dropping down, but we are back down towards levels into extreme fear that are getting very close to telling us these are bottom signals. And here's the significance of this, because some people are going to say, Tim, in a bear market, we drop to these levels as well. I agree 100%. Let's be very clear here. After hitting all-time high, though, like I said, we only dropped 21% to find our way down to a 21 on the Fear and Greed Index. What did it take back last bear market? If you go back to 2022, when did we hit 20 or the equivalence of it in the bear market of 2022. We hit it in January of 22. After Bitcoin didn't just pull back 20%, Bitcoin had crashed 50%. Of course, when we hit that 20 on the Fear and Greed Index, we had a dead cat bounce where Bitcoin would bounce back up towards $50,000. But my overall point is, during the last bear market, to get us into a fear mode of 20 on Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, we had to fall 50% in price action for Bitcoin. Altcoins were down more like 70% at the time. Right now, this does not strike me as the beginning of the bear market. This strikes me with extreme fear coming in, despite the fact that we are maintaining daily closes above 100K. This still screams to me that we are far from a bull market top. Let me know if you disagree in the comments. Let me know if you think the argument I just made was absolutely stupid, if it was rubbish. To me, it makes sense. I think to a lot of you guys, it makes sense. But it is something I wanted to address. Now, is the bottom in? That's where I'm not necessarily convinced it's so. We're going to talk about some news here in just a couple of minutes. I want to show you something, though, that is sticking out to me that I want to make sure we are clear on. We are still in a bear trend on Bitcoin. We're still in a bear trend on much of the crypto space. When will I say that I think the bottom is confirmed in? Get me back up above not only this lower high of 111,000 we set back on November 2nd, there's a trend line at the moment stemming from the all-time high. I want to see a break above that resistance as well. Otherwise, we are simply making lower highs and lower lows. And I told you guys, when you go back to the weekly chart and you look at what we had here, I was warning you guys for a while on this. We had a weekly sell signal that launched back in August of this year. And what threw us off is that we ended up putting a higher high, an all-time high in September. But as I've told people before, sometimes manipulation moves happen. The sell signal did not go away on this oscillator. We clearly had a bearish divergence, which is a reversal, a gray momentum dot, and the money flow started slipping out. This, if you have never seen this before, maybe you're just finding us for the first time today, welcome to the community. Make sure you smash like, make sure you're subscribed. The last couple times we've seen this, guess when the dates were? December/January, so December 2024, January 2025, and back here, March of 2024. And I could go back further and go to April of 23 and all this. Let's just focus on these ones, these two right here. The last two times we had this weekly sell signal, of course, we're talking about this top in January. We're talking about this top in March. When you use the Smart Pack toolkit that gives us smart trails, every time the last 3 years, we've seen a sell signal on the weekly chart, we have wicked down to / slightly below the smart trail region. It happened right here, again, topped in January, it bottomed out in April, topped in March, bottomed out in August. Both these times, and if you go back over here again, look back into 2023, we did it back here as well. This time, while we got very close the other day, we still have not wicked and touched or gone below the smart trail region here at 98,643. Another big detail, let's toe away from this indicator, is that historically during this movements, we've had some pretty significant pullbacks when it comes to Fibonacci. Fibonacci pulled back a wick to the 0.618 or golden pocket level back here in the summer of 2024. It's had several candles touch the 0.5 range. That was that pullback. What about the one here early in 2025? Well, if I pull up Fibonacci once again from the lows up to the highs, you can see here we pulled back down to the 0.5 level on Fibonacci. Didn't have to go all the way down to the golden pocket, but we touched the 0.5 level. At this point, we have still not accomplished that feat. Right now, what we just saw happen was a wick down slightly below our 0.382, but we could keep dropping down below 97,000 towards 96K before we finally touch that 0.5 level. And I still don't think it's ridiculous. Some people are going to say it is. I still don't think it's ridiculous to think a golden pocket visit down here towards 91,000. I think that should still be on the table. We're going to have a lot of liquidations still in effect down at those levels. We have, depending on what time frame you're looking at, we have some pretty key order blocks. I think let me pull up on our daily chart, I want to say is where we had these order blocks. Maybe it was the 4-hour chart. So let me look at both of these real quickly. But we have some pretty high volume and buying signals here. We have one coming in here around 96. And then I do believe it was the 4-hour chart that gave us a lower one. So let me load this for just a second. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Great indicator. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to cut going. 96 is there. Well, we had something else down here at 92. Golden Pocket is going to be one of the biggest ones there. But at least you can see here and say, based on these indicators, we've got a pretty juicy order block right below 97, pushing towards 96K on several time frames. And with us not having a bullish structure, along with some conversation about the news headlines we're about to get into, I don't want to be the dasher of all of your hopes and dreams. I've warned you over a month ago, pullbacks could be coming. Does that mean the bear market's here? No, it does not. It means that this is a normal part of bull runs where we have large corrections and we experience moments in times where the fear gets so strong, a lot of newer retail investors capitulate, sell off, and leave. Right now, I think fear and greed index needs to go slightly below 21. I think we need to push closer towards a 10, but this will get rid of weak hands. And the few that remain, the strong-handed people that remain who buy into the fear and hodl on despite the news trying to shake you out of your lunch money, you will be the one who get to make money. I'll tell you this right now. Even some of the bears that I'm good friends with, I have a lot of connections with people who have been telling me, hey, Tim, I think we're in a bear market. I've had a lot of people reach out to me in the last couple of days saying, hey, Tim, I don't think the bottom's in, but I absolutely have started re-DCAing because I'm starting to buy into your theory that this is a great transition from retail investors, right? Crypto was created for retail, but this is a great excuse and a great reason for retail to capitulate and sell so that institutions can buy up cheaper cryptocurrencies before the raging bull market. People are buying. They're just not talking about it. They like the scared sentiment right now. They want to keep you scared away from buying crypto. And heck, I understand why you're scared. I understand why people are capitulating. I understand why people are freaking out and frustrated and are deciding they want to move on from crypto in general. What I'm here showing you is it's not as bad as you think when you study the charts. It's only the internet and the news articles that are trying to paint a gory picture of the markets. And that is all a part of the grander plot to leave you out of the bull market. You as a retail investor, you're not meant to get rich. Only the elites and the wealthy get to keep their wealth. That's exactly what's happening right now. I'm not your financial advisor. I can't tell you what to do. I'm just here telling you what I'm seeing on the charts, telling you what I think about the news, and I'm telling you what I plan on doing. I have not sold a single Satoshi, and I did buy some crypto last week. I will buy again sub 100K, but my expectation is all of my buy signals will probably come north of 90K before we finally bottom out and start a fresh bull run. Let's get into the details, though, with the news that's affecting some of this. Let's start off with a big story that was revealed today about the real reason why crypto prices are dipping right now. It's a little bit of a story that made me surprised. I think I actually said the opposite of this a couple of days ago, so I was wrong on this, but it does look like things are confirming what's causing this crash. For more on that, I want to throw it over to Shrum, our head of news and head of research. Why are crypto prices crashing over the last month? And in your opinion, after you read the story, do you think the dip is over?
Good question. I like the way you teed it up there, Tim. If you've been in our Discord watching the morning news, then you know exactly what I'm about to say because there was a bombshell Wintermute report that came out this morning. And Wintermute is a very big powerhouse when it comes to the OTC markets, so they can see a lot more data than we can see. And they just published a report that delivers the insights as a result of the data that, again, retail and even some institutions don't get their hands on until these reports go live. So jump over to my screen. Not going to read this whole thing. If you want to get the full breakdown, go to Tim Warren Trades over on X. You can find the link down below. But these are some of the key insights from the hot Wintermute report. One, it's not a lack of liquidity. It's that liquidity is flowing into AI tech stocks and stablecoins. If you don't think of anything about this video other than this, then you will have found value in this video. This is the main takeaway. Why has crypto had a failure to launch after the summer? And it is because of this. AI has become very shiny. It has stolen the show. Is new liquidity coming into the market? Absolutely. A lot of new liquidity is coming to the market. Look at the M2 charts. Okay, but that money has flowed instead of into crypto, into AI stocks. But the Wintermute insights don't stop there. The 4-year cycle is no longer relevant with liquidity flows now dictating market trends, not miners. Okay, so that's another key insight. And then the last question here is when moon? When will crypto moon? Well, this is around the time that it will moon. when AI tech starts to cool down as an investment narrative and stablecoin holders buy more than they hold. People who are holding stablecoins are functionally on the sidelines for crypto, but all those stablecoins are very unlikely to rotate into stocks because they're in the crypto world. But they're still on the sidelines, so something's got to change there. The stablecoin holders got to stop holding, and they got to go ahead and buy AVAX. They got to buy Cardano. They got to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana for them to go higher. There's billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap of those stable coins waiting on the sidelines. But the other thing that needs to happen is AI needs to stop winning. And unfortunately, that may be a train that doesn't stop anytime soon. So it really does kind of focus in on those stable coin hodlers. Tim, that's not something that most folks in the market really know about. This report has kind of shown, for those of us who have been kind of having inklings of this theory, this report definitely hits it squarely on the head. This is also something that Galaxy Digital CEO Mike Novogratz has been talking about in some of his posts and on CNBC. So this isn't something that's completely new to the market, but this does show a good explanation of why, not just since the October 10th sell-off and this more recent sell-off Monday and Tuesday, but also why we haven't seen crypto explode out of the summer and into Q4 when Bitcoin usually tops out of the 4-year cycle. So it's simple. AI is just a freaking awesome high reward investment that crypto is kind of similar to, except when you're buying AI, oftentimes you're buying Google, you're buying Microsoft, you're buying Nvidia. These are household names for equity investors and asset allocators. It's much easier for them to allocate into those names than into something called Ethereum, Solana, Chainlink that maybe they've never heard of. So Tim, it's a bit of a bombshell that Wintermute is throwing at us. If you've been in the Discord, you've been ready for this, you've been hearing it. But what are your reactions to this? And then I'll tell you if I'm still bullish or bearish.
I think it all makes a lot of sense. Ultimately, here's what I'll say. There's something I'm disagreeing with Wintermute. There still is a liquidity issue. When you look at the issues going on right now with banks, and it's not just American banks, we're talking about banks in pretty much every corner of the world are having liquidity problems. We know here in the United States, we reached this last week a low since 2020 in reserves, hitting 2.8 billion. And I would love to hit a low of 2.8 billion in my bank account. But for banks, that's pretty bad. It's so much so that despite the fact that we're not ending QT until December 1st, and we're not entering Q1 or kind of easing yet anytime, they haven't made an announcement for that, we are watching the Fed inject money back in. Why? Because there's a lack of liquidity. Now, there still is liquidity. What we're watching here, and what Wintermute's pointing out, and others that you mentioned, is that the little bit of liquidity that is in circulation is not moving towards the exciting asset class in the news. It's moving towards something that only gives the wealthy and elites any type of attention. Let's be honest. Susie Joe over here, who has a limited amount of funds, who wants to invest and change her life forever, is not going to go take her $1,000 total investment and throw it into Nvidia or into any of the Mag 7. That best case scenario by end of year might be up 20 or 30%. She's hoping for a doubling, tripling, quadrupling of her investment, and that excitement rests solely in the crypto class. You match that with the recent news, and I'm not talking about recent as in just last week. Think about what's been coming this entire year. We have heard that crypto regulation will be coming very favorably. We've been hearing from the President of the United States, other people on staff, large businesses who were used to be anti-crypto coming out of the woodwork saying crypto is the next big thing. It's going to make people money. It's going to boom like never before. Bullish, 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 bullish. So Susie Joe over here says, okay, I'm looking at a crypto asset class that's relatively low and everyone's talking bullishly about versus I look at the stock market realm, the Mag 7, I know the gains are limited. I'm going to go sit my limited funds in crypto for a greater upward swing. I get that. Here's the thing. The news about how bullish crypto has been that keeps kicking the can down the road, I don't think is a lie. We are going to see a very, very bullish future for cryptocurrency. But If you can get people frustrated to sell all of their crypto that they were maybe in gains or in losses of, and allow whales and institutions to slowly accumulate lower prices, it's the perfect strategy for these larger individuals. They don't care if their multi-billion, some of them multi-trillion-dollar assets only appreciate by 20% a year in the stock market, because that's a whole lot of money to them. But what they're doing is they're toying with the retail investor who they know are not patient. They're not willing to wait for it. They're hearing the bullish news, but watching bearish charts, and they're going to run for the hills just so we get this massive crash, which is happening. We get this massive pullback in the future asset class of the world, and then the elites jump in to eat anything they want to eat. And in the future, they're the ones that make all the money. Only those who can endure the blood and the gore of the markets and buy these low prices get to reap the rewards later on. Institutions and whales, they're willing to play that game. Little people are not. If you're confused what I'm saying, I want to tie it up with a pretty bow. Ultimately, keep the kids distracted. The kids are retail investors. Give them this shiny thing over there. Entice them with news articles. Heck, I want to throw myself in there. Have influencers like Tim Warren and other people tell them, hey, this is the future. This is bullish. Buy now. They know that you don't have a long-term horizon to wait. You want wealth now, here. Give it to me here. This wealth is going to come out over the next couple of years. This wealth, the people that can hold and stay through all this madness, they'll make money over the next couple of years. The elites will make money over the next couple of years. Retail, who are impatient, they'll run for the hills. And now, guess what's going to happen? As we're telling you this, I can guarantee, Put a 7 in chat. I want to do different numbers here. Put a 7 in chat if while we're talking about this story, your brain is sitting here saying, man, I think I need to go sell all of my crypto that I'm in loss on and go buy AI stocks. If that's you, be honest, put a 7 in chat, because that's the exact strategy they want you to play up. They want you to always chase the shiny object, whatever's ripping to new highs. They want you to dump your losers and go buy what you perceive as winners. And what ends up happening is you'll end up selling the bottom of the crypto market. You'll buy the top of the Mag 7. And then all of a sudden they flip it around on you. They sell the Mag 7 and buy crypto. And you're left flip-flopping back and forth, ultimately buying every single top and selling every single bottom. It's a tale as old as time. Liquidity is coming here soon. The amount of bullishness is happening, but capitulation of retail investors, it's marking a bottom coming very soon. We'll get to a place where no matter what good news we tell you here or you hear on the internet, people will cease to buy crypto because they simply don't believe in it anymore. That's when the bottom will be in. That's when the composite man will pounce. And that's when the real gains start happening.
I love it. And to reveal kind of if I'm still bullish or bearish on this, it is a lot of what you just said, Tim. If AI stocks are elevated, right, and crypto tokens are not elevated, right, they're kind of in a bit of a slump recently, and in case folks haven't noticed, what is most logical for that to happen, right, is for liquidity to rebalance, right? Now, the problem with that is that there is a lot of momentum on the AI side, right? And so while retail may be a bit smarter and they're not going to go try to chase these high-flying AI stocks, unfortunately, I think the institutions are much more comfortable continuing to allocate into names like NVIDIA and Microsoft. But there is going to be a limit to that, and eventually liquidity is going to expand overall when the government opens back up, as Jolenberg says here. He says, yes, but QT was pulling liquidity out of the market, and the government shutdown also is freezing liquidity. Yeah, so right now we're in a moment. It hasn't been the whole 2025. But we're in a moment where liquidity is shrunk, and that's why the Fed is having to go to their repo facilities and issue billions of dollars in loans in this quiet quantitative easing, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that until AI becomes less shiny and less interesting, there is going to be just a continued net flow towards AI, not necessarily out of crypto, but just new income going into AI. So there will, but I'm bullish. I'm continuing to buy the undervalued asset, the value over here, I guess I would say. So the asset that is undervalued, like AVAX, like Solana, like Bitcoin. Solana and Bitcoin is what I bought today. I bought that literally around 2 p.m. today. So that is what I'm buying. I'm not necessarily selling my AI stocks yet, but that's essentially what I'm thinking.
Yeah, real quickly, I want to make sure I clarify a couple of things. I am not saying right now that I think the top of these AI stocks is in and that the bottom of crypto. I've already told you guys I don't think the bottom of crypto is in just yet. Likewise, I don't think the top of these others are. So if you want to enter some last second trades, if you want to go and invest in AI, I don't think you'd be buying the top right this second. But I do think, I don't even want to say buy the top because I don't think these stocks are going to crash. They're built not to crash. They'll stall. They'll start to trade sideways, and then you'll be frustrated when you're not making gains, and all of a sudden the crypto market you just sold out of is ripping to the upside. It's just something you want to be careful with. Shout out, by the way, to Larry Jones. Stock Up Larry Jones is in chat. Obviously a very good friend of the channel, a mentor of all of us here. So we give him his respect and honor. Go subscribe to his channel because he is one of the GOATs out there. Also, I saw a comment that made me laugh. Thomas said, Tim talks to us like we're all a bunch of 5-year-olds. I think it's really funny because you're right. I do. Sometimes when I'm thinking through how I explain things, I'll literally say, I'll talk with like Grok or ChatGPT, and I'll be like, give me an example of how to explain this to, and I don't say 5-year-olds. I think I usually say a 5th grader. But the reality is, while some of you can be insulted by that, there's a lot of you out there right now that says, I'm glad that Tim's talking to me like I'm a 5-year-old or a 5th grader because I don't understand what's going on. Ultimately, I also talk to you guys the way that I want people to talk to me about things that I don't fully understand. Some of you remember like 5 years ago when I first got involved in crypto social media, I literally had a nickname called Non-Crypto Tim. Why? Because I didn't know anything about anything. I made a video on the Crypto Jeb channel, who we used to work with, and the whole video was Tim attempting to do technical analysis, despite the fact that he had no idea what he was doing. It was one of the funniest, but also most embarrassing videos I've ever made. I lost a bet. I want you guys to know I am where you were when you didn't know anything just 5 years ago. Okay? Maybe you don't think I'm the smartest person ever right now, but anyone who saw me back in 2020 making content with Crypto Jeb's team versus who I am now has seen miles of developments of how I've learned to process markets and charts and data. And that's what I want to instruct you guys to do as well. I want you to be in a place where a couple of years from now, you're the expert. You're the one managing your funds, making money left and right because you know what to look for on the charts. You know how to process the news. But to do that, we got to start by talking to you like you're a 5th grader. By the way, before we continue, we have more stories. My marketing guy is going to beat down the door and beat me with a baseball bat. YouTube, don't take us down for that. I'm joking. I completely on Monday forgot to remind everybody that speaking of learning things like a 5th grader, some people's biggest issue with investing is they don't understand risk management. I have talked to people in the last couple of years that have been investing for 30, 40, some even 50 years. And every single successful trader or investor I've ever talked to and asked, what is the secret to success, has told me, Tim, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. The difference between success and failure is proper risk management. And because of that, this Saturday, we have a webinar, November 8th, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's a link down the description. We're going to be going through Tim's 10 rules for trading, tips that you absolutely need to institute into your trading toolbox to make sure you use proper risk management. How do you handle wins? Yes, that's great. But more importantly, how do you handle losses? If you don't have a plan for that, you're going to fail in the world of trading and investing. Make sure to show up for that webinar this Saturday, November 8th at 10 a.m. Right, Shrum? 10 a.m.? I'm not misquoting that time?
That's right. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
We're going to be there. Now my marketing guy won't hurt me. He's going to let me go, and he's going to say everything's okay. Again, I forgot to do that on Monday. Show up on Saturday, or he might still try to beat me with a baseball bat. All right, back to the stories, though. What else we got in the news today here, Shrum? Because it's not just about Winter Mute. What else we got?
Absolutely. Traders on prediction markets see a 30% chance of the Supreme Court backing Trump's tariff. So this is CNBC putting this in the affirmative when this statement really should be good chance that the Supreme Court is not going to back Trump's tariff. So we don't need to take too much time to discuss this, but the market's going to have to digest, is this bullish or is this bearish? I genuinely could make a strong argument for either way. The good thing is that we're not likely to see an announcement of the way that the Supreme Court is ruling, maybe even in Q4. So we may have to wait till the new year to hear that announcement. However, they did hear oral arguments at the beginning of this week. Tim, any thoughts on this? We're ready to move on.
Yeah, I think it's just too much unknown about that story to spend any type of real time on it. Continue to monitor it, continue to watch. I think you might have just said this, but maybe you didn't. Besson recently made a remark that almost made it sound like if they shut these ones down, they're going to have other avenues. We're not out of the tariff chaos. That's all I'm going to say. We're not out of the tariff chaos. This story will continue to develop. I just want the markets to go up. I just want to see things increase. I want to see my portfolio and your portfolio increase. So we'll monitor this with you and help break it down what it means. Right now, this story impacts your portfolio not at all at this moment. Could that change next week? Sure. Could that change a month from now? Sure. But right now, let's move on because this story isn't as important as some of the others.
November 5th ETF flows, whales buying Solana. This is an exciting one here for our Solana holders, and this is part of the reason why Solana is the altcoin that I bought today. Bitcoin spot ETF outflows, 578 million in net outflows, fifth straight day. Okay. Not fifth straight day of that exact number, but fifth straight day of outflows for the Bitcoin spot ETFs. Ethereum spot ETF, 219 million in net outflows for November 5th. And that's the fifth straight day. Okay. And now we get the ray of sunshine here for our Solana holders. Spot ETFs, 14.8 million in net inflows for the sixth straight day. And by the way, these Solana spot ETFs have only been live for 6 days. So 100% of the time that these days have closed, these spot ETFs have gotten inflows. So these numbers are small, 14 million, not in the hundreds, but so far, investors who are interested in crypto ETFs are going down the risk curve to buy, right? So this is very promising. Now, Tim, I want to get your perspective on this. Does this mean that Solana is the right one to buy today?
I mean, Solana is not terrible. Again, I don't think any crypto, if your plan is to buy the bottom, well, first of all, you didn't even buy the bottom because let's pretend the bottom's in. That would have been yesterday. That would have been last night. I think that DCAing picks like Solana on news like this is a good suggestion here. What is DCAing? Dollar cost averaging. I tell people all the time, the concept of perfection, the word perfection should be removed from your trading and investing vocabulary. If you think you're going to pinpoint and buy the exact bottom to the cent and sell the exact top, you are doomed for a lot of frustration and misses. I like buying good levels and selling good levels. And one of the best ways to do that is dollar cost averaging. Some of your entries won't get hit, but most of them will on both sides. So is this a good, if you go to my screen here, is this a good DCA location for Solana? I think so. I'm not going to even talk about the recent highs for Solana. I could show you that one. Let's go to the daily chart here, actually, before I go to the 4-hour chart. But even just in the last couple of weeks, Solana dropped 40% from the highs we had in September. That would be down from all-time highs, which we hit way back here in January. We're down 50%. Buying an asset down 50% from an all-time high, I'm not telling you that's the bottom. It's a good level, though. For a bottom, I think that could be realistic. We talked about Bitcoin bottoms earlier. We were in this rising channel. Once again, told you guys Solana was in this channel and that you need to pay attention to it. I don't think we're going to play out the severity of the fullness of this formation, but in theory, Solana really could drop all the way down towards 122 and still not be ridiculous, right? That right there from the more recent highs here would be a correction of 50% from the September highs. Still not that crazy ridiculous. Looking at the Fibonacci tool right here, again, that's going to be right there beneath the golden pocket. The golden pocket, I think, is where I'm kind of watching and saying that's a good location, a good spot for Solana to come down to. And that would be somewhere between 138 to roughly 134. Could we go to 122? Yeah, we could. But I'm going to probably say I would put my next buy signal. If you buy some right here, the one below that, I'd be looking down there towards 138 at the 0.618 for Solana.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I bought it, and I am not out here trying to time the exact tops and bottoms, but I usually do fairly well.
Again, great DCA spot. Maybe I'm wrong, guys. Maybe the bottom is in. Maybe we did have a good amount of volume in last night. I would love to be wrong. Would love to be wrong. Now, when I say I'm love to be wrong, just so you guys know, I am actively entered into a Bitcoin short. I did list on our VIP trading group this morning. So far, right now, I'm in profit on it, actually, based off my entry. If I'm wrong, I will lose money, but my long-term portfolio will be bullish and I'll make money. So it's a perfect little hedge here, but I don't think I'm wrong. I think we're going a little bit lower. I think Solana will go a little lower, but just in case, have strategies, have plans. DCAing is, I think, a good idea right now for an investor who isn't familiar with charts and is not quite sure what's going on. You're down 50% from all-time high. If you believe in the project long-term, that's a great DCA level.
That's right. If you can buy below your cost basis in a conviction, in a high conviction asset, then you are investing properly. As long as you're doing everything else that you should be doing as an investor. All right. Yeah. I saw a comment talking about can't wait for the XRP ETFs. Be careful with that one because there has been a spot XRP ETF on the market live for going back to September 15th. So I don't know that the XRP ETFs, there are new ones that are going to be coming out from more reputable issuers, I will say, but I would not necessarily expect that one to get the same type of inflows. Maybe it will, because it'll be coming out from, I believe, Grayscale and Bitwise, which are, again, a little bit more reputable than Rex Osprey. But okay, moving on here. We talked about the Supreme Court. We talked about Solana. Ripple. Speaking of XRP, we're going to keep it there. We're going to park it there. Ripple partners with MasterCard to introduce RLUSD credit card settlements on XRP Ledger rather. Very exciting. But remember, November 3rd headline, Ripple has launched a digital asset spot prime brokerage service for the U.S. market. Now, I have been someone who has not necessarily been the most bullish on XRP. These two double whammy headlines here are really doing it for me. This is momentum that I like to see in a project. I did not DCA this one, but I think that these two headlines together are showing investors that XRP Ripple is doing what it takes to stay relevant with institutions. Tim, am I reading that right, or are you not excited by these headlines?
I think I made a comment about XRP headlines the other day. I am a holder of XRP. I've not sold any XRP. I think these headlines are long-term very bullish, but XRP is one of those coins that you need to see it. You need to see the pump. I mean, technically every crypto is like that, but XRP probably more so than others. It is just not uncommon whatsoever for XRP to have what seems like amazing news, and then the price just continues to the downside. And I'm not talking about amazing speculation. I'm not talking about people making ridiculously high bullish predictions and then price falling. I'm talking about major partnerships, major breakouts, major fundamental wins, and then the price still decreases. I think it's going to increase. I think XRP is going to make people money. As much money as some other coins, maybe not. But I'm just not going to fawn over this news and be like, man, I got to go buy every XRP coin I can afford right now, because it's just not really the coin that's catching all the attention right now when it comes to buying it.
Gotcha. Well, that concludes our stories here. We've gone through all of them. Oh, no, we haven't, because Aerodrome has a little bit of an extra bonus going on. I'll give the fundies on the front end. The fundamentals for Aerodrome being bullish here is that it's got a deflationary switch that has flipped on. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know everything about the nuts and bolts of that fact, but since September, Aerodrome has become a deflationary system. So that's really, really exceptional. And I believe that that's actually better than Uniswap, whereas Uniswap, kind of the counterpart there, it's really good for Aerodrome. What are the charts saying, Tim?
Yeah, Aerodrome's actually holding up pretty well compared to the rest of the space. Go to my screen. It's still in its own little downtrend, but it's respecting some pretty good levels here and called a falling channel. A lot of other coins broke structure when they had things like this. Aerodrome, not so much. Right now, Aerodrome, it's had a small correction while we've been live. At one point I saw earlier today, it was up 15%. It's still up 12% on the daily candle right now. As far as all the coins that I track, I'm going to make sure there's no other one that's higher than that. But of all the coins that I track, this is the largest mover. I think Trump token right now is up 13%. So that's one. Never mind. VeChain, 17%. Okay. I don't always check my VeChain chart right there. But Aerodrome definitely kind of catching attention right now. Of course, we've been high on Aerodrome for a while. This is a coin that I do think is going to be one of the biggest benefiters of Coinbase and Coinbase's relationship with Ethereum. If you guys don't know about Base, it's not a token. I think there's going to be a stock you can buy or something you can buy to invest in Base itself. But right.
They announced they are coming out with a token. It's not out yet.
They're coming out with a token.
The CMO or somebody said that they are going to come out with a Base token. There's a chance they won't, but Probably.
But effectively, why is Aerodrome so special? Well, Base is like the best layer 2 solution to Ethereum, and Aerodrome is the liquidity in the DEX for Base. And so therefore, you got a lot of money flow. It's effectively, even though it's not itself a layer 2, it is outperforming the Polygons of the world. It is outperforming the Arbitrums and the Optimisms. It's the best co-investment, I think, right now to Ethereum because of what's happening on the Ethereum chain. And I know Ethereum's not necessarily having the greatest time in the world. We almost hit 3,000 here last night, but I still think Ethereum's one of the sleeping giants. I still think Ethereum's going to have a massive bull run. Is Tom Lee a little off? Has Tom Lee made some predictions that ended up not coming true timeline-wise? Is he giving us some pretty crazy high price predictions for the end of the year that I don't think are coming true? Yes, absolutely. I still think that he knows some things. I still think the future of Ethereum is going to be very, very bright, and Aerodrome absolutely will get some of the benefits there. As far as what the charts are saying, take a look here with me, and I want to take a look at what we actually have going on with our indicator here. We had a sell signal the other day on the daily chart, but you do see we hit the support level. We hit, this is a short you could have entered. We hit that smart channel, and we're bouncing really cleanly. If we do go lower, I would love to see, I'd love to get access to more Aerodrome closer towards, let's call it around 65 cents. That still is doable. I know some of you are saying, Tim, we're at 89 right now. That's a big fall. I want to make money, and I think 65 cents could be very, very good. However, if we end up breaking to the upside, if we break this resistance level, if we start to, is this one of the ones that had the buy? No, it doesn't have a weekly buy signal just yet. But if it does end up getting a buy signal, right now the resistance level or the top of our smart trail is coming in at $1.51. Why is this important? Because when I turn this off, the descending channel that's more macro, dating back to the highs of April of 2024, and I do think it's when we break through this level, these charts suggest Aerodrome could make a massive push as high as $8.37 based off of these technicals right here. For those who just want to see some quick math on that, that would be an increase of roughly 800% or a 9x. So I think Aerodrome is still a coin people should be looking to accumulate as much as possible. I would be DCing into it right now. Let's see. How far is it down from all-time highs set back here in December? Right now, you're buying Aerodrome at a 61% discount. It's a pretty good level to DCA in. Is the bottom in? I don't necessarily think so. I don't necessarily guarantee. Some altcoins, the bottom might be in for certain altcoins. Bitcoin, I'm not so sure. But what I can tell you is a coin that has a bright future that's attached to one of the most explosive coins in terms of market cap out there and attention is down 61%. That to me is a great opportunity to buy a good dip and make some money in the future.
I like it. I like it. Well, now we have arrived, I believe, at the question and answer section where folks can just go ahead and shoot our questions toward us and we'll answer them.
Absolutely. I know we recorded a couple of them here. QT was pulling liquidity out of the market and the government shutdown also is freezing liquidity. Yeah, that's about to all change there, Jolenberg. I don't know how you pronounce that name. Ending QT December 1. I made a whole video about this. Make sure you guys go check it out on this channel. You'll see, I think we changed the title so you can find it very easily. The title of that video, I want to make sure I get it correctly here. Effectively, it is how will crypto respond to the Fed ending QT? I do a deep dive on the history of not only quantitative tightening, but also quantitative easing and how markets have responded in the past. I give a couple of opinions in that video, but it's really mostly just based on history. So go give that a watch, learn a little bit about the history of QT, and get your own expectation for what markets could do after December 1st. Ryan came in here and said, Tim, are you still going to be doing TA on the Paul Barron Network? Great question. Yes, I am. I was on vacation last week. There was a mix-up in scheduling this week. I'm going to be in his Friday's video, I think. I'm recording with him on Friday. Last week I was on vacation, so other than trying to create content for our community, I really took as much time to spend with my wife and kids as possible because despite the fact that I love you guys and I love the charts, I tell our VIP trading group this all the time. I mentioned this again last night. I probably took a year of investing and trading where the charts controlled my day. They controlled my mood. They controlled my sleep. I've had a couple people tell me like, Tim, like I'm not sleeping well because I'll get into trades and I'll get lost in the sauce. And I was there. Like I'd probably spend at least a good 6 months not sleeping because I would be in trades. And even though I would try to lay my head down, I would wake up like every 2 hours anxiously going to check the chart. And I had to learn, I love trading. I love crypto. I love creating content and spending time with you people. But my health, my family, my relationship with God, they're all priorities that it's not an issue of I want to prioritize them. I have found that as a person, as a content creator and a trader myself, it's when I prioritize my family, my wife, my faith, that I actually become better at creating content, at helping people learn how to trade and trading myself. So vacations are very important. Rest is very important. Having weekends to go touch grass and sleeping and spending time with your family when you can. I'm a big believer in working hard. I work very, very hard, but you work hard when you rest hard as well. So that's another non-financial piece of advice that you guys should be following if you want to make money. Learn to balance life. You'll burn out if you go 110% at one thing. You're meant to do several things. You're meant to have boundaries and different interests. Otherwise, you'll get ruined. So I'll be on Paul Barron's show on Friday. All right. What other questions do we see here? I looked at how much ETH World Liberty owns and can't think that it would crash yet. Yeah, I mean, crash. I think we've had some pretty decent crashes already. How much lower we crash, that's going to be the question. I don't think it's that significant. I don't think it's that bad.
I actually think that's a really good point. The institutions have taken a lot of positions in crypto at this point, whether they're building and becoming semi-reliant. Reliant's probably too strong of a word, or whether they've actually bought some tokens in the case of World Liberty Financial, right? That is a good point, right? There are a lot of folks who have a lot to lose by these projects going past a certain price level, especially MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy has been, taking out loans to buy more Bitcoin. It's been doing all kinds of financial voodoo with its shares and its corporate bonds to buy more Bitcoin. There is a level that certain members of Wall Street will not let the price of Bitcoin specifically go down below, in my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong about that. They could potentially just throw caution to the wind and let the price go down below that level because some very big institutions like MicroStrategy would lose way too much. It would become unviable at that point. And, institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, and others like World Liberty Fi just they're not going to let that happen, in my opinion. So it's a good point.
Here's a good question, and what's this name? Michael? I mean, that's an interesting way to spell Michael. That's Michael Memendovich. He said, Shaman Tim, when do you guys think the top will be in for Bitcoin and Ethereum? That's a good question that I'm not going to be able to answer perfectly, and I'm gonna answer your question by answering a different thing. Ultimately, it's so hard to pinpoint time. And I put a message out on X today. I'm going to talk more about this. So I think one of the big differences between us and others, and there are other influencers out there that do this, so I don't want to make it seem like we're the only channel that does this. A lot of influencers in this space will scream from the mountaintops when something they've predicted is true, and they're right about something. And by the way, we'll tell people when we're right as well. The difference, though, is that a lot of other influencers will just get very quiet or skip over times that they've made mistakes or that they're wrong about something. And honestly, I understand it, right? Just psychologically, when you're trying to build your social media business, you want to be perceived as a winner. You want people to follow you. So admitting defeat or admitting you're wrong, it can cause people to lose faith in you. Problem is, I can't handle that. Like I can't take away the truth of what's happening to just try to gain clicks and money. I tell people when I'm wrong. In fact, I tell people when I'm wrong quite frequently. There's several videos on this channel that you'll see the title or the thumbnail is I was wrong. And it's not clickbait. I go fully into what I got wrong. And something that I have gotten wrong, and I'm not ashamed of it. I had a plan for it. I've still found a way to be profitable. But I was wrong this year about the timeline of the bull run. People remind me all the time. You don't have to remind me. I know it full well. I've talked about it. I thought that we would start a bull run early in 2025. Didn't happen. I thought that by the summer of 2025, we'd have a bull run. Didn't happen. I thought that October looked ready to go to the upside. Didn't happen. Now, what I said back in January, where my timeline was wrong, I said we will have a bull run when we have clarity on regulatory measures, when we have clear regulation on crypto, and when liquidity starts flowing. I think it's going to happen in Q1 of 2025. Oh, didn't happen. Okay, well, I think regulatory clarity and liquidity will happen during the summer. Didn't happen. I think it's going to happen in the fall, maybe October. Didn't happen. I'm kind of getting to a place where I'm like, man, I know that I'm going to be right about what causes us to rally, but I have no idea at this point with the way our government works in gridlock and they keep kicking the can down the road about when we're going to vote on bills for regulation. And every time we start to add some form of liquidity, like rate cuts, something else happens with banks. I don't know when the liquidity is coming. I think it's soon, but I kind of got into a place in reflection of those timelines I've gotten wrong and said, I'm not going to give a timeline anymore. I'm not going to try to pinpoint when the top of the bull market's going to be. I'm not going to try to pinpoint when we finally rally. I'm not going to try to pinpoint when certain events happen. I'm going to tell you, we cannot rally until XYZ happens. XYZ remains the same thing today as it was back in January, 11 months ago. We need to see regulatory clarity and we need to see an injection of real liquidity. That will cause the bull run. When does that happen? Maybe next week, maybe in December, maybe in January. I feel like Dwight Schrute from The Office talking about when the end of the world's going to come and Jim's harassing him. If you know that scene, you'll laugh inside. At the end of the day, the same answer can be said about the bull market. When will Bitcoin and Ethereum top out? I don't know. But I'll tell you right now, what is going to be happening around that time is that retail. I know you think retail is not coming back to crypto. I saw someone comment the other day in one of my chats. They're like, Tim, retail's done with crypto. Give it up. We're not going to see that happen. We're all retailers here, guys. So I'm not insulting you. We are all in a group, but can we be honest about ourselves? Retailers are stupid. We're like sheep. We're like that. I'm quoting a bunch of memes here. You see that video of that sheep that just keeps jumping in that ditch and then the farmer pulls him out and he jumps right back in the ditch? Retailers are stupid. We walk away from markets because the charts are down and the news sounds bad, only to walk away right at the bottom. And then they say, retail says, oh, I'm never coming back here. I'm done with crypto. I'm done with this asset class. But then it gets really cool again and starts making a lot of money and we jump back in. The bull market will end when retail is coming in like crazy, when charts have hit new all-time highs, when Google searches for Bitcoin and altcoins are sitting at all-time highs, when Coinbase app is at the top of the app store, when your grandma and your grandpa and your aunt and your aunt, and even the people that said they quit crypto are texting you saying, what's the best coin to buy right now, along with extremely bullish headlines promising us future gains. That's when we'll top out. Will that be in 2026? I don't know. Will that be in 2027? I don't know. Will it last another 10 years? I don't know. So I'm done trying to predict timelines. It's the hardest thing to predict, and it's the biggest thing I get wrong. I'm just going to start waiting for the signs. I'm going to look at the charts. When does the chart tell me to buy? When does the chart tell me to sell? I'm going to look at the news and I'm looking at the current events and saying, when is this the right time to be investing? And when is this the right time to be taking profits? What that means is if you want my opinion, I can't give you a final answer right now. You're just going to have to subscribe to the channel and watch all of our content. But I promise you, when I start buying again, I will tell you. When I start to take profit because I think the bull market top is in, I will tell you. I just can't predict it at this moment in time. Sean, do you have anything to add to that? Any thoughts you have?
And my answer is I ain't never going to stop predicting the top. February 4th, 2026 will be the top for Ethereum and Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I have no crystal ball either. I think my predictions are all force based, right? So I'm looking at the forces. Is the stablecoin market cap increasing or decreasing? Hey, it's increasing into the hundreds of billions. That's all money on the sidelines of crypto that has some sort of intent to rotate into the crypto world, into DeFi, whether they're going to stay in Bitcoin and Ethereum or whether they're going to go down the risk curve. Other forces, the Federal Reserve and other central banks globally printing fiat, debasing their own currency. That makes, by definition, other assets, including stocks, real estate, more valuable, right? Not to mention the safe haven aspect of assets like Bitcoin that folks will flock to get out of the debased fiats that they earn. And then many other forces like tokenization and big institutions that have talked about how tokenization is the next big thing. Those are narratives that may be further out. But when the Clarity Act, or the Market Structure Act is passed by the Senate, even when we get a confirmed draft of that bill, that could potentially be all that is needed, just the draft. But of course, when that passes the Senate and makes its way onto the desk of Donald Trump, President of the United States, I just can't imagine a world where crypto prices are not higher in that moment, right? It may be a sell the news event, but I think in anticipation of that signage, I think that we have to be higher. So I think that those forces and many others, including, if the AI investment trade becomes less sexy, become less shiny and interesting, I think a lot of that liquidity will take profit in NVIDIA and Microsoft and flow into other places. Some of that's going to find its home in AVAX, in Solana, and others.
Absolutely. Well, it's 4:01. We're going to go and wrap it up here today. Once again, on the way out, make sure to check out if you want to learn more about investing, trading, and learning proper risk management. This Saturday at 10 a.m., November 8th, we will have a webinar, Tim's 10 Rules for Trading. And ultimately, it's ways to protect, to make sure when you're wrong, you don't lose out on that much money so that the gains outweigh your losses. We will see you guys on Friday once again for our next live show. We will be putting out a video tomorrow about an exciting stock that you don't want to miss out on. So make sure you're around for that. Otherwise, we'll see you next time